Hello Fabrics DIYers, it's Diana Tabois here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to sew and make your own bias tape. So let's begin. So here I have this bias binding tape that's already pre-made that can purchase at the store. I'm so in love with this. I use this for almost a lot of my projects, and I have used this in a lot of my tutorials, with like the scallop edge on the Aztec strapless dress that I did, and the binding on the zippers. These are so easy. It tells you on the package about how many yards is there and how wide the bias strip is. As you can see, this is 1/4 of an inch, and they come in bigger sizes as well. All you have to do is take out the package, apply it, and stitch it down, and then you're done. So here you can see that the bias strip is folded in half and then a half again. So it's basically 4/4. And since it's continuous on 1 yard, I don't have to worry about separating. I just choose to separate wherever I want to. Now the only downside about this is that it only comes in one type of fabric, which is cotton, and I wish it came in other fabrications, but it is what it is. So here, as you can see, I have a piece of satin, and I'm going to go ahead and bind that edge. So basically what you're going to do is just apply the bias binding to the edge of the fabric and then just basically stitch it down. Here I am at the sewing machine and just stitching it down, and this is very complicated if you're very new to this. You want to make sure that you stitch on both sides of the binding. Sometimes, when you first start, it's kind of tricky. You might stitch down one side of it, and then after that, when you realize the other side is not stitched. So you want to make sure that you are stitching both ends. And when you are finished with that, you will have a piece that looks like this, that is nicely finished and bind. You can use it for many projects. Now, if you want to get more creative and you can't find any of your local shops to have this bind strip, you can make your own actually. So I like to make my own. If I want to get very decorative and get creative and think outside the box, I can use any type of fabric that I want. Here's a cotton one. As you can see, it doesn't stretch across, it doesn't stretch at the top, very little stretch, as you can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create some bias strips. So what I'm going to do is take my ruler and get a rotary cutter. Make sure your rotary cutter is sharp, because mine wasn't sharp as much. And you just want to go ahead and create some bias strips. My bias strips are 1.25 inches each. I use my clear ruler just to create the strips one by one, and you just go ahead diagonally through the box that you created from your fabric. This could be on satin, it could be cotton, it could be stretch knits, organza, you name it, you can basically cut it. I wouldn't recommend like decorative fabrics like sequins or anything like that, because it's not going to work. So I'm just going to go ahead and create some more strips so I can prepare the bias binding for when I want to bind. Just take your time when you do this. You want your strips to be accurately the size that you want it to be. So once you're complete, it will look like this, and as you can see, the strip stretches across, and that is where you get the stretch at the bias. I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to make them longer, because sometimes you have a longer seam or a longer edge. So here is a strip, and I'm gonna take another strip and place it exactly 90 degrees from the top to bottom of the first strip, and I'm going to sew a diagonal line from one end to the other end. Here's what it looks like, and you're going to cut away the excess fabric to 1/8 of an inch, and voila, it becomes a continuous bias strip. So I'm going to chop off that end right there, and I'm going to open that mini seam allowance and press it flat. And then there you have it, a continuous bias strip. And you can make them as long as you want. I would dedicate a fabric just for bias strip. So here I'm going to create my binding, and what I usually do for my binding, I fold it in half, then press it down. Now they have devices for you to help you create your binding, but I don't have that, so I'm going to do it by hand and take my time while doing it. So I'm going to go ahead and press it down the center, which is folded in half, and then I'm going to fold it in half again. This is very tedious, And once I've got both sides pressed down, then you want to fold it back in half, and that will be your 1/4 inch bias binding. Take your time, you don't want to burn your fingers. And once you've complete, the strip will look like this. And now, since I have a piece of satin which I folded in half and stitched it down 1/2 inch, and now I have a raw edge, so I'm going to take my bias binding and just bind the edge of the satin piece, just like I did earlier with the purchased one. Now place in the machine once again, and make sure that you are sewing both sides of the bias strip onto the fabric. Now once you're complete, it will look like this on both sides. It is stitched. And here is another version that I did. This is a seam pressed open where you both seam allowance is stitched with the bias strip, and you can basically use any fabrication you want, prints, anything you want. One side of that is bind with silk satin, so it basically matches my satin fabric, which I really like to keep it very consistent with the fabrications. And the other side is the actual cotton that I just showed you in the stripe version. So these are what the bias strip will look like. If you take your time, you can actually have fun with them and be creative with your project. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to see more techniques of finishes, join my Patreon where I share other techniques there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye guys!